Just give people a chance to file in here before we formally start rolling. We had around 250 registered, so once we get 120 or so, I think we'll get rolling. All right. Yep, so while people continue to fill in, I just want to say welcome to everybody and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. Before I hand it off to Melanie for the actual introductions, I want to just go over this platform in particular. We've been using it for the past few weeks, in case you haven't joined us for one of these coffee breaks before. Zoom webinar does not automatically share your video or your microphone. You don't have the rights to do that, so you're safe in your PJs and you don't have to worry about being heard. You can use the chat function if you want to just have a discussion or make a comment, anything that's not directly related to the content. But if you do have a question, we're going to ask that you use the Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar screen there. That'll make it much easier for us to manage those questions when we get to the end of the webinar. And Melanie's going to reiterate this, but we're going to ask if it's specific company that's presented, that you just type that company name in there, a hashtag, ETS or whatever it might be. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to Melanie Gottlieb.
Good afternoon and happy Friday. I'm Melanie Gottlieb, Deputy Director of ACRO, and I'd like to welcome you to today's ACRO Coffee Break. It's a pleasure to be on the line with all of you today as we navigate the challenges presented by the COVID-19 crisis together. Joining me today is Dr. Wendy Kilgore, ACRO's Director of Research, along with panelists from the testing services, who I especially want to recognize for giving time to ACRO while trying to navigate the impact of the coronavirus on their own operations. We've asked them here today to give you updates on how they are adapting in the face of this crisis, so that you will know what to expect in the fall and can make good decisions at the campus level to serve your students. In the order in which they will present, we have Marie Vivas, Senior Development Manager from International Baccalaureate Organization, Adina Chapman, North American Regional Director of Higher Education West for Cambridge Assessment International Education, Bazirat Agbula, Progression and Recognition Manager at Pearson, Martha Pitts, Executive Director, Higher Education Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives from the College Board, Kenton Pauls, the National Director of Higher Education, ACT State and Federal Policy for ACT, Wayne Camara, ACT Research Chair, Michelle Hampton, Director of Global Client Relations and Global Education Division for Educational Testing Services, or ETS. And Meredith Stokes, U.S. Recognition Manager for the PTE Academic English Assessment at Pearson. As always, we're hopeful that our technology will not fail us. This is a large Zoom call with a large number of panelists. We're not using the video function and your mics are all muted so as to save on bandwidth. As indicated in the intro, we ask that you use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen to ask your questions, and we will address them as best we can during the Q&A section of the webinar. If you would like to direct a question to a specific testing service, please indicate using a hashtag and the name of the testing organization. For example, hashtag ETS, so that we can more easily direct your question to the right organization. With so many of you on the call, we know that we will not be able to answer all of your questions. Rest assured, they will be collected and added to the ever-growing list of policy questions that our guidance team is working through every day. And it may resurface as an article in our Connect newsletter, a specific guidance document, or another coffee break. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to give you a short overview of ACRO resources and direct you to where you can find the guidance on these particular topics. Then we'll go over some recent survey results with Dr. Wendy Kilgore. We'll move into the testing service organizations, and each service will give an update, and then we will move to the open forum. All of the updates will be relatively brief so that we can get to more of your questions. Next slide, Mike. Just a quick update also. So with the circumstances surrounding COVID-19, ACRO has opened up our membership vaults, and we're offering a free 3 months membership for anyone at your institution who is not already a member. So if you have someone that you would like to give access to all of our member resources to during this time of crisis, we welcome you to add them to your roster, and you can find that information on the website. Next slide. Much of the guidance that we create here at ACRO emanates from our members and from the leading and best practices. The ARTG, which is the Academic Record and Transcript Guide, the 2020 version is now out, and it does cover some topics in terms of dealing with advanced placement, international baccalaureate credit, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. We also have a student displacement book that's been out for a couple of years. There is a specific chapter, number 6, on medical outbreaks on campus. And while you can get the whole book in our bookstore or available on Kindle, you can pick up the chapter 6, which is directly related to medical outbreaks, free on our website right now. And so it's a limited time download. If you go to our ACRO COVID-19 guidance pages, you will find that free download of chapter 6. Next slide. Another free resource that is useful in this time of crisis is the ACRO 2019 report on inclusive admissions policies for displaced and vulnerable students. While the focus of this report was on refugee populations, the practices and the guidance in that report is absolutely applicable in any kind of crisis, either domestic or international. Next slide. And lastly, I would like to make sure that you are directed to our ACRO practice guidance for COVID-19. We have related guidance that endorses alternative practices for institutions in times of crisis. In these times of crisis, it's very, very important as we adapt our practices and our policies that we have clear communication to our stakeholders, that we are transparent in our practices to those same stakeholders, that we make sure that our approach is consistent and our application of that practice is consistent, and that we are always acting in the best interest of the student. Application of ACRO guidance available on the COVID-19 guidance page ensures appropriate balance between the protection of your institutional integrity and support of student success in these challenging times. We're adding new guidance to these pages every day. And if you go there right now, you will find under both the admissions and the transfer credit sections specific guidance that does relate to managing testing results. And so I encourage you to take a look at that guidance, and I hope it's helpful to your institution. Next slide. With that, I would like to turn things over to Dr. Wendy Kilgore.
Thank you, Melanie. And a big thank you to everyone who's on this webinar, who's also responded to our impact surveys. We've been sending these impact surveys out on Mondays and closing them on Wednesdays by noon at Pacific time, and trying to get a snapshot of various things so we can provide the guidance. So been tremendous responses. Just to summarize them, the first one we did was on grading and transcript practices and commencement plans. That's posted to the COVID resource page. Number 2, actually, when I wrote this slide about a half an hour ago, it said, report will post today. It just posted, it was released. So it was on undergraduate enrollment indicators, admissions practice changes, and fall course delivery. and which also includes some testing data. And the next one, which goes out Monday, is going to be on transfer credit evaluation, official transcript practices for both inbound and outbound, and fall term start dates. I know these are kind of hodgepodge in the topics that get covered on them, but that's by nature of the topics that come up as high interest, and we're trying to capture them and not make them super long surveys. So again, these resources are available to you on the ACRO COVID page and ACRO research page, and they will be automatically delivered to you if you're already signed up for ACRO research reports. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last report was again on undergraduate practices and changes that anticipated. And we had 94% who are considering or having made practice changes of some kind. The standardized testing and course placement testing specific data is shown below. It's just extracted just this morning from the report, where blue indicates no change, yellow is the change has already been made, red under consideration, and gray is that it's not on the table for discussion. So as you can see from there, there's definitely some consideration for going to optional standardized testing for admissions practices, and also for modifying any index scores they're using for course placement and or admissions decisions if the standardized scores are missing. And also they're talking about eliminating course placement testing in its entirety. So this is a moving target. This data, I'm sure, would be different if we took this snapshot next week, but hopefully it helps frame some of the discussion today. And again, the resources are all available to you on the website. Thank you. Melanie? Sorry, Marie Vivas?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to our colleagues from ACRO and to my other colleagues from the testing organizations for getting us started on this important conversation. I'm Marie Vivas. I'm a Senior Development Manager in the International Baccalaureate Office, and I'm based in the DC office. Next slide, please. So basically, we just wanted to go through the differences in our normal assessment structure and the adaptations that we've had to make given the considerations of schools being closed down and folks having to work from home. And of course, as a global organization, IB has been working on this since really late January, early February, given the fact that our schools in Asia were closed down a lot earlier. So I just want to put them side by side and show you what our assessments, our final assessments for IB courses will look like and how they're different from our traditional assessments. So in the normal IB world, we have 3 sets of assessments that come together to give you that final score on an IB exam from 1 to 7. So normally we have internal assessments. These are courseworks and assessments that are marked in the school or graded by the teachers, and then samples of those are sent to IB examiners for moderation, and those grades are then incorporated into the final grade. We also have in our regular assessment schedule externally assessed coursework, which are projects and assignments that were given to students that are sent to IB examiners and are completely graded by the IB examiners. And then we have the external examinations, which is what most of you are familiar with, the final exams that students sit in May. So a combination of all of those scores come together to create the final grade that you see on a transcript. So given that we've had to curtail our students coming together for final assessments, what we've done is, instead of having the internal assessment coursework graded by the school, we actually are sending all of those to our IB examiners. So instead of having them graded by schools themselves, they will be graded by our examiners, and they're due around the 20th of April for most subjects. We are working to be as flexible as possible with schools that have been affected by COVID-19. The external assessment, those are the projects that were already assigned to students and were completed, are also being sent to IB examiners for marking. So the big change is that we will not have examinations to be held in May. This means that we are going to base our grades on the internal and external assessments. Next slide, please. So we've had a lot of questions about what does this mean for students. All eligible students will indeed be awarded a diploma or a career-related certificate or certificates for individual courses. They will all be given grades for each subject, a 1 through 7 score as is traditional. Diploma students will be given a grade for the core, that's a 0 to 3. And diploma students will also be given a score out of 45 by adding the above. Now, I think what's important to point out here is that the results will be calculated using the external and internal assessments, significant data modeling that we have using historical data from our schools and all of our assessment sessions, and of course, using the internal predicted grades from the school to the IB, not the ones that you as universities see, but the ones that IB uses internally. We are working very hard, and our assessment team has made sure that the standards will be comparable past and future years, and our goal is to still deliver results on 5th of July using our standard transcript process. Next slide. Here are some resources. You can sign up for the higher education newsletter. This is how we're communicating with universities through this process. In the IB FAQs, you will see much more detail about how the assessments are being conducted. And the third link is a higher education survey. So if you have a policy that you've already put together, we would like you to let us know so that we could compile them for our stakeholders. And then our email, recognition@ibo.org. If you have any questions, please direct them here. Thank you very much, and I am done with mine.
Next slide. We are going to skip the Cambridge for a moment because Adina Chapman is having some technical difficulties, so we will come back to that. I'd like to turn the slides over to Bazirat.
Hi everybody, and thank you to ACRO for giving us the opportunity to speak to everybody today. So I'm Basirat Agbula, and I'm the Progression and Recognition Manager at Pearson. So I manage the Pearson EdExcel relationship and engagement with universities and counsellors to enhance the progression of students into universities around the world. Next slide, please. And next slide. Thank you. So today I'm going to also give you a quick update on the position for Pearson students with regards to the May and June examination and the COVID-19 disruption. I first just wanted to give you a brief reminder of the qualifications that we're referring to today. So these are the broad, under our broad portfolio across academic, which is Pearson EdExcel. So you can see there are GCSEs, GCE AS and GCE A level, and our international qualifications, which are benchmarked to the UK standard. And equally, we are referring to and updating you on our vocational portfolio. So that is the Pearson BTECs, which are also offered across the same levels as our academic portfolio, so the levels 2, level 3, and the high nationals, which are equivalent to the undergraduate standard. So what I will be referring to a lot in my update is around the regulation that we work to at Pearson, and that's because we're a regulated organisation. And regulated means that we work to a number of UK qualification experts, so that be our policy leads, departments of education, Ofqual, which regulates the qualification examination process in England to maintain standards and confidence, and other organisations such as the JCQ, which is the Joint Council of Qualifications, which again brings the large examination bodies in the UK together. So we are standardised around how we deliver examinations and issue results. And we're also working in advance of COVID-19, have always worked alongside other UK exam boards to make sure that we work in a comparable way for all students taking our qualifications. It also goes without saying that we actively engage with universities, our own school community. And before we move on to the bare bones of the COVID response and the changes that we're making to our examinations, I just wanted to highlight the existing services that we have in place for helping you confirm student achievement with confidence. I will say here that publicly we don't yet have an online system available for third parties. I know that's a burning question, but it is an active point of discussion for our organisation. Pleased to say that in the interim, we introduced a new service in 2018, which is based on a DHL delivery service into universities and admissions organisations. So I've linked to that in the slides. And through this process, students will instruct us as the exam board to send paper copies, hard copies of their provisional results directly to admissions bodies and admissions officers in universities. So we've put this in place as we know prior to this, you were only able to get final certificates directly from us, of the awarding organisation, and these tend to come out much later in the process. Also pleased to say that for the first time this year, and this was already in the works in advance of the coronavirus disruption, we will be delivering these provisional results to you by email from a Pearson email address. So when students submit the application to us and to instruct us to send their results to you as a university or credential evaluator, we'll be able to do that by email this time. When you get to that page on our website, you'll see that still refers to the DHL sending service, but we'll be updating that in the coming weeks. Obviously, as you know, our focus for now is the changes that we've made to the May and June examination period, but please be assured that we will be allowing you to receive results by email following the release of results to students. The other thing I just wanted to point out is the fact that we've also always had a process that you can use to check fraudulent or suspected fraudulent documents that you may receive from students applying to your organisation. So that email address is there for you. And in all cases, whether students are sending their results to you via the service on our website, or if you are checking results with our candidate malpractice team, there is a student consent process. So I've just linked through to that form as well, because we'll need that to be in place in order for us to confirm student record. Finally, there's our email address, so progression@pearson.com. Please do get in contact with us if you have any questions about accessing our results or any of the information that I share with you on the next slide. So with all that said, next slide, please, Mike. Thank you. So like the IB before me, when the COVID-19 disruption first impacted school delivery in the Greater China area in early January, we quickly mobilized to offer remote learning and teaching resources and formed a coronavirus task force to closely monitor and respond appropriately to the rapidly changing situation. We've all moved on and made quite large-scale decisions to the way that we operate in the current pandemic, but our focus remains on keeping our international community safe and informed and proactively supporting learners with their academic journey and onward progression. So how we're doing this is in 3 ways. So we are offering free access to our resources to allow learning to continue. So this includes published resources and curriculum for all of the qualifications that students are taking with us around the world, and that's both at secondary level and primary school level as well. We make this available to non-Pearson schools also, and the reason is because we want all students to be able to continue to learn and to reach their learning objectives in their curriculum study. So that includes the published resources that we make available to students studying the IB. We want students to be able to continue their learning despite the school closures around the world and the fact that they're unable to take their exams. What we're also doing is providing professional development support and advice to help UK and international school teachers get to grips get to grips even with distance learning and how to maintain student well-being and resilience in these difficult times. And again, this is really key to allowing students to continue to learn and to become college ready. So when they are moving on to the next level of study, whether that is college or university, they are able to demonstrate what they need to be academically successful when they join you. And finally, what we're doing is actively communicating with yourselves and Pearson Schools about the changes that we've made to the May and June examination series and assessments. So these are, the big headline is that we've had to cancel all May and June examinations and assessments, both in the UK, that's following the school closures, and internationally around the world, to make sure that we can ensure the safety and well-being of our community. What we are doing for these students that are affected, provided they were registered to be assessed or examined in May or June, is we will be able to supply them with a valid result and grade, despite not being able to sit their exams. And this is because we are working actively with our regulator Ofqual and the government in the UK to commit to this process. And this process has been designed in such a way that will allow us to produce as fair a result as possible for students, regardless of them taking an Excel qualification or BTEC qualifications in the UK or internationally. And as a UK regulated examination board, we've always aligned our principles to be able to offer a valid result to students, regardless of where they study and what they take with us. And this year will be no different. So what we wanted to highlight to you today is that we're actively working with the other UK boards and the qualification experts in the UK. We know at this stage that students will be asked to submit a prediction for the students who would normally be sitting for the May and June exams or assessment, as we know that those students teachers know those students well, and are best placed to judge what grade they believe the students would have received if the exams had gone ahead. Based on the principles set out by our regulator and government as well, these schools are also required to rank the likelihood of each student achieving that grade within the student cohort, the subject cohorts for that exam paper. Teachers were sent detailed guidance on the 3rd of April, so last week, how to do this fairly and robustly, and given examples and guidance of the existing evidence that they can use, including mock results and non-examined assessments. So they already have the evidence that they'll be using to make these judgments. When we receive the teacher input, we will produce a calculated grade for each Pearson student. Now, this methodology is being shaped and actively agreed with the other exam boards, with moderation from our regulator. So us as an exam board, we play a key role in collecting the teacher grading predictions, and more importantly, we'll be standardizing them using the best statistical model that allows learners to get the results that they deserve. So we haven't yet got timelines for this next phase, and that is the formal exam board calculation, but we know that we will start to get the teacher predictions from the 29th of May. So there has been quite a lot of discussion on the type of methods that will be used to calculate grades for the vocational qualifications, including our BTECs. Just to kind of give you an example of how fast moving this process is, we now have confirmation from yesterday, 9th of April, that our regulator and the Department of Education have confirmed that BTEC qualifications that we usually use for university entry will also follow the same calculated grade principles as are going to be in place, as are in place for our GCSEs, the A-levels and the international equivalents that we award to students. There'll also be a clear appeals process for students that receive their grades in this way. And students will also, if they prefer, after seeing their grade, to sit for a paper for certain qualifications later in the year. The dates for those examinations are still to are still to be confirmed, but we will communicate this widely and with urgency once agreed. So just to finalise and hand over to the next organisation, that the examinations for May and June are cancelled, but students will receive a grade for their, provided they were registered for May and June assessments, and they will be on the usual grading scales that you're used to. And we want to reassure you that the grades that students are issued will have the same value as previous and future years. Please continue to follow the advice that we provide to students on our website. So that's the quals.pearson.com COVID-19 URL. And it's not coming up clearly on the slide, so I'll post it in the chat for you as well. And just to finalise, yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and I'll hand over to our panellists.
Thank you for having us here today. I'm going to talk, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. We appreciate the opportunity to have a few minutes to catch you up on what's going on with the College Board and our assessments for admission and for enrollment. Just to reiterate, the same with the other organizations that have spoken, as all of us here are concerned primarily about the health and safety of educators and students. And that is our highest priority at the College Board. And that goes for the advanced placement test, for SAT, for all of the programs that we offer. One of the things that was gratifying to us as we started to figure out what we were going to be able to do in response to the coronavirus crisis is that we surveyed about 18,000 advanced placement students, and more than 90% said that they wanted to take the test. We were trying to figure out what we would do as far as advanced placement testing, and we heard resoundingly from students that while everything else was in some sort of flux, they really wanted to be able to take take the AP test. And so we have figured out a way to be able to provide advanced placement review of courses and the advanced placement test online for this class that will, for this cohort of students who have taken the taken AP classes this year. And that includes students at a number of different grade levels, seniors as well as juniors and a few sophomores. So we are continuing to provide preparation with some of the best AP teachers in the country, teaching online for students who don't have the ability, or their schools don't have the ability to provide them continued instruction online. We are also offering free resources, and the online resources right now have had more than 4.3 million students viewing those resources, and more than 400,000 hours. This was last week's numbers, so this hasn't been updated for this week yet. More than 400,000 students, 400,000 hours of viewing time on these resources, so that students stay fresh and continue to learn right up until the AP exams. We will be offering the AP exams online. They can be taken at home on any device. That would include computers, laptops, tablets, phones, any device. In fact, if a student does not want to type out the answer to one of the free response questions that we'll be using, if they don't want to type out the answer on their phone, they can write it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it and send it in. The exams will be about 45 minutes long. Students will need to log on early to check their technology and make sure that they're prepared. But we'll be giving the exams on May 11th through the 22nd. In that time period, we'll be giving the exams, and we will give makeups June 1st through the 5th. Our plan is to release scores as close to our July time frame as we possibly can, because we know that that's important in registration for classes and in advising. So our biggest concern, I think, is that making sure that students have the tools and the connectivity that they need to review the AP content online so that they're well prepared, and then to take the test itself. We've been working with a number of partners to make sure that students have those tools in order to be able to take the test. We know these are resources that not all students have, and our commitment is to access for those students. So we have on our website at collegeboard.org, if you go to the AP site, you will see a place where if you know of a student, you can let us know of a student who might not have the resources, either connectivity or the hardware to be able to take the AP test online or to prepare online. Or the student can put their own name in, or it can come from a high school counselor. It doesn't matter. There's an intake form and there's an opportunity for us to try to help assess how we can help prepare and provide information and resources, whether it be connectivity or hardware for students. So we're excited about the opportunities that we're going to be able to provide for students online. And we've heard from a number of colleges and systems. I think we're right now at about 20 systems that are offering the 20 university systems that have said that they'll be able to accept AP scores and award credit for them in the same ways that they have in the past. So we're excited for students and excited to be able to provide this continued service for colleges and universities. If you could go on to the next slide. With the SAT, at this point, we have been forced by the COVID-19 pandemic to cancel the May 2nd administration and the makeup exams that were scheduled for March 14th. And that does include both assessments that would have been provided on the weekend and in the school day administrations. And so those are the tests that we've had to cancel at this time. We're working really hard to make sure that we're making the advanced placement, making the SAT available in schools and out of schools as soon as public health will allow us to do so. And this means that we are pursuing options, a number of different options that will allow us to make the decisions that we need to about upcoming administrations, and also to see about what we will do should schools not be open in the fall. But we are pursuing a number of different innovative means that will allow us to be able to continue to test our commitment. We are confident that we will be able to provide opportunities to test for all the students who will be graduating in the class of 2021. We are confident that we will be able to offer them the opportunity to test in an appropriate time frame, and we look forward. We've talked with a number of higher ed institutions about providing flexibility to students in terms of timelines to deliver their scores, but we're very confident that we'll be able to do so, to offer those opportunities for students in order to be able to submit their scores in a timely way. We expect that we'll be announcing soon, sharing information about our plans for the additional weekend administration. And we continue to work with schools and districts, our state partners, our district partners, to provide testing opportunities in the fall as well. And we know that Khan Academy is still available to students to help them keep their skills sharp. These offer free resources for students, including an opportunity to take full-length tests to stay in practice and to be prepared for the SAT. We'll be able to help keep our higher ed partners and members in the know about what's going on. We'll be hosting a series of webinars over the coming weeks. We'll be sending communications, continuing to send communications through our enrollment brief, and you're encouraged to reach out to us directly or through regional staff members that you work with on a regular basis. So I'll stop there and just let us move on, and be glad to answer any questions later on.
Thanks, Martha. Wayne Camara and I are both panelists here today, but I'm going to take the lead in sharing an update on behalf of ACT just in the interest of time. I'm glad to add an ACT perspective to provide an overall and a high-level view of recent developments with respect to ACT testing in the context of everything that's happening with COVID. And much like Martha shared so well, that our decisions are guided by a commitment to the safety for students and the families that we serve, as well as the testing staff with whom we work every day. The first thing I want to point out is just some tangible or some specific things that we rescheduled the ACT national test date and have been active to accommodate the needs of students. We know that students need to test, and the process has been to reschedule students into the June 13th or the July 18th national testing dates. We also are working closely to add capacity to these dates in anticipation that we will be able to hold those test events, given that we know that the demand from students and institutions is growing, and we're hoping that those test dates will continue, although of course we're watching very closely as conditions change every day with respect to the pandemic, and nothing will guide the decision more than the safety considerations that you would expect for the students and our testing staff. So if we don't see the conditions improve and we find ourselves unable to hold the test dates in June or July as we currently plan, our goal is that we would make a decision about those tests within a month or prior to a month before the test date. So that's a timeline, although as with everything in the COVID era, we really, it's a day-to-day decision that we have to, or an environment that we face. I want to say that as we consider additional testing options, the technological enhancements that ACT has made in recent years has really positioned us well to incorporate additional testing modes. We've been delivering computer-based testing since 2013 as part of our state and district contracts, with approximately 100,000 students who took the ACT in a computer-based testing environment last year. And many of you know that we have announced new offerings that are scheduled to roll out this September of 2020, where we will be offering computer-based testing as an option for students in our national testing centers. Students in those environments would have the option to either test in paper environment or setting or with a computer. And we're also evaluating newer testing alternatives, such as remote proctoring. It's based on research that we've done and innovations that we know and have been contemplating. And all of this is in the context of remaining committed to service that we have an obligation to deliver to the students and institutions. And our desire is to support students as they compose the portfolio that they need for proper admission and scholarship application process. As more specifics get developed and defined and as decisions are made, we're committed to providing further details as those become available. And as many of the organizations on this call have been speaking about their resources, ACT has a whole array of free digital resources that are available, and you can find those at act.org/COVID-19. And I'll leave it there, other than just to say that our commitment remains firm and steadfast to that we desire to assist students in schools and institutions and who are needing to remain safe and healthy, yet also navigate the ever-changing environment that is that we all are facing in higher education and education generally. So with that, I will turn it over to my next colleague.
Thank you so much, Kenton. It's Michelle. And I wanted to first thank ACRO for this opportunity to be able to speak with you candidly about the changes that we've made to be able to accommodate our test takers, institutions, and certainly our test center staff. I echo everybody's sentiment that we have to care first and foremost for everyone's safety and well-being. And in doing so, we will go through this session and talk about some of the things we've put in place to make sure that we can provide testing and great scores for our candidates. Next slide, please, Mike. And many of you have heard from us indicating that we have come up with at-home testing. You're right, that's not typically what TOEFL and GRE are known for, but we felt it was important when we began this process. We realized, with our commitment to supporting institutions and students during the health crisis, that we needed to do something above and beyond. And in doing so, we've created these at-home solutions to provide a convenient and flexible, safe option for them, allowing students the opportunity to take the test at home and complete those applications for admission so that the institutions can make informed admissions decisions. So in the case of GRE, which I'll speak to first from the admissions entrance test side, you will find that both tests, of course, are still research-based and the valid, reliable assessments that you've come to know. But what GRE has done is that they have made sure that the test content is identical in content, format, and the on-screen experience for test takers when they sit at home to take it, so that it mirrors exactly what they would have had in the test center. We want to make sure that we're also making you aware that we will provide the same scoring criteria, scoring process, and score scale in applying it to the at-home test. We think that the essential role that GRE plays in admissions as the most objective lens through which all applicants can be compared, regardless of background, is too vital not to still provide it as an assessment in this situation. So what our test takers are able to do is still provide you with the 3 separate scores of verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. And you'll still have the ability as an institution to read the essays that the test takers did write on test day at home if you are participating in receiving your scores through our ETS data manager. That's an electronic process. At this present time, since we can't be in our own offices throughout the U.S., we also are unable to report printed score reports, but we are able to disseminate the scores for both assessments via our ETS data manager as electronic score reporting features. Or for those of you who are still receiving our ScoreLink score reporting service, we also are able to send you the scores that way. There'll be a link on the second slide that you can go to learn a bit more about the ETS data manager so that you can view the scores as we proceed. You'll find that we began offering both the GRE general test and the TOEFL IBT assessment at home in mid-March. We started out giving it to just 9 countries, but I'm proud to say that as of April 2nd, we have been able to roll it out to most of the locations where we are also able to administer the traditional computer-delivered GRE general test and the internet-based test for TOEFL. In mainland China, ETS is working closely with the National Education Examinations Authority to accommodate test takers impacted by test cancellations, including adding test dates once regular testing resumes. We are also working to offer at-home testing in Iran as soon as possible. The way we're able to offer the GRE general test at-home solution is with using the services of ProctorU. And ProctorU, as many of you may know, has over 10 years of experience delivering innovative solutions to over 1,000 organizations, including universities, colleges, public and private enterprise. Their data from over 5 million test takers, including for large-scale, high-stakes testing, has given them a unique insight into when and how examinees attempt to violate security standards. So since our security standards at ETS are so high, we wanted to make sure that we were working with an organization that felt the same way. And we have great confidence in ProctorU and being able to support us in carrying out that mission. In the case of the TOEFL IBT Special Home Edition test, that also is going to mirror the exact same experience that the test takers would have in the test center by delivering the same content format and the on-screen experience to the test takers in their homes. We're still assessing all 4 skills: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And we're also able, through the ETS Data Manager, to let the institutions go into that service and listen to the speech sample taken during the test administration of the test taker answering one question in the speaking section. We think it's important for you to have as much confidence in the security of the test as we do. And we do feel that the high level of security that meets ETS's high standards is comparable to our at-home solutions for both assessments. ProctorU is able to afford us online monitoring of the test by a live proctor the entire duration of the test administration. That is an important distinction that allows us the opportunity to apply the security measures to make sure that we can view the test taker's environment, the table or desk in which they're using while they're taking the test, and also any interference or interactions with others in the room if there are any. But we are able to use that proctor who is live and watching the test taker sit for the assessment, and the proctor can cancel the test immediately if there is any attempt to cheat, open a new browser, use unpermitted software or devices, or to communicate with others during the test. We think that we know actually that the opportunity for you to receive your scores electronically will still give you the opportunity to make the important admissions decisions you need to for both populations going forward. We also want to make sure that in doing so, we share with you that we still are available to answer your questions regarding any test scores that you receive should you have questions. And actually, Michael, if you could go to the next slide, please. And you'll find that you can reach us at these particular phone numbers and email addresses. We want to be of service to you and your students in this process. We think it's important during this worldwide health crisis that we help you to make sure that you're reaching out to the high quality students that you often have accepted in the past. We want to answer questions for you and support you in any way possible. So if there is a need that you have that we, for some reason, have not yet addressed, definitely contact us. We know we're all in this together. We want to make sure that our test takers, our institutions, and our test center personnel are able to feel that we support them in every way possible. Another thing I do want to point out is that we do and have been offering webinars going into great detail about what's changed and what is involved in our at-home testing solution. And we would welcome you to participate in any of those webinars. We have them on different time schedules so that we can accommodate a worldwide audience. And you will find that if you are able to go to our COVID pages indicated here, that you will be able to not only register for those webinars that we have throughout the month of April, but you'll also be able to learn of any other updates we're making to our processing during this time. You'll also see on screen that we provide links for test takers. If you are in direct contact with your applicants, please feel free to point them to those resources. And certainly if any of your faculty are also advising students, please share this with them. We thank you and we welcome the opportunity to answer your questions during the Q&A. Thank you, Michael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Stokes, and I am the U.S. Recognition Manager for PTE Academic here in the U.S. I will try to be quick as a courtesy to everyone in your time, but we do have a few updates. These slides are going to go out to everyone, so I will save the time of reading them. PTE is here also with one of our other tests that I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit more, and it's the Verson English Placement Test. Some of you guys might be familiar with it, most of you probably not. But just a couple quick updates. We, Pearson, PTE, Academic, all of us, we are up and running. We've been working from home for about a month as a company, so even our support team is there in case you need anything with the score reporting website, scores sent to you, things like that. We are definitely available. We also have a few test centers open in the world, not many, but we do have some. That list can be found on the front of our website, the PTE Academic, pearsonpte.com, and you'll see a button at the top that says COVID information. And it lists out all of our test centers, if they're at reduced capacity, and if when we're expecting to reopen some of them. As you guys all know, it's been stated, it's a day-to-day, kind of fluid situation. So as soon as things are safe locally, we'll be reopening our test centers in each location. We do have the option to maximize our capacity, and we are definitely going to do that. So there will be increased seats available for test takers. So if you don't accept PTE Academic yet and you've been on the fence, this is a good time to add it to your list of available tests because there's going to be a lot of students that need testing. And as we all know, students don't typically take more than one language test. So the last update I have is we do have a kind of stopgap in place that we think would be a great solutions for universities. And I have more information. My information is on the slide. If anybody would like to reach out to me, I can kind of go over that with you individually. But just know that it is a 50-minute test. It's an online test they could take anywhere. There is some security in it, and there's also remote monitoring available. So it's not a secure high stakes test, but as we all know, Duolingo's not either. So right now we need to be flexible. We need to do what we can to support students and support learning. So Pearson wants to fill that need. So there's a couple kind of points about both tests on the last slide of mine. And again, my information is on the slide. My name is Meredith Stokes. Feel free to reach out to me. We can set up a time to chat and give you some more information. Thank you.
Hi, this is Melanie Gottlieb, and I'm just popping on to share this resource that was provided by IELTS. They have a lot of moving pieces right now, but they wanted us to share the IELTS website, which has updates on their testing. We are nearly at time, and so I'm going to bring the slides back to our panelist, Adina from Cambridge, because her technical issues have been resolved. She's going to present her information, and we're going to extend by only 15 minutes. And so we will have a few more minutes to answer questions. Some of our panelists may have to drop off, but we will have the panelists answer unanswered questions and append it and send it all to you to accommodate as many of the questions as we can. So to save time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Adina.
Thank you very much, Meredith. I really appreciate that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, great. Just wanted to confirm before I started presenting. And thank you, ACRO, for this opportunity. I'm sorry I had technical issues. They've been a lot lately with these uncertain times. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to announce that on March 23rd, we decided not to hold our international examinations for the May-June 2020 series in any of the over 170 countries that we offer exams. So we've made that decision internationally. It affects all of our schools. And many of our schools have shifted from not wanting to rule out the possibility of holding exams, but we strongly urged them that we needed to make a uniform decision internationally. So we really, our overriding concern was, like most of our other colleagues at testing organizations, was to protect our students and children and to ensure fairness to all of our students. So we have been undertaking a development, like many of our other peers, of creating a methodology for grading for this term, in light of not actually having the students sit for the exam. So the students will have a fair and valid assessment. That assessment will result in the students receiving a grade and a certificate from Cambridge International, just like every other year. The students who meet the requirements of the group award will continue to receive the Cambridge ACE diploma if they have met all those requirements. So our grades will be in lieu of the exam grades that they would typically receive. The grades and qualifications will carry the same value as grades and qualifications for any other Cambridge series. So we've been working for over a month with our Higher Education Advisory Group, which is made up of U.S. institutions. We met them this morning to get their feedback on our methodology, which we'll be sharing more with education very shortly. We do have a web page that's dedicated to colleges and universities that's located on the slide. Feel free to continue to go there for new information on our methodology and our processes during these uncertain times. I don't want to take up any more time from this group because I recognize that we've already been going over time and we haven't had much time for Q&A from the entire group. So Melanie, I'll turn it back over to you.
We're going to move right into questions. And Wendy, do you want to ask the first question?
Yes, thank you, Melanie. And if you've been watching the question and answer panel, some of them actually have been answered already and they've moved over into the answered section. So what I'd like to do in the interest of time, because we only have a few minutes, is try to have one question per group of the questions that have been asked. And I've been trying to move them around and highlight them. So let's try. The first question actually I think is probably going to apply to, but it'd be nice to get a perspective. This for the College Board in particular is, how are you addressing students who need accommodation? They're going to be taking these tests at home.
That's right. I appreciate the question. You know, we're with the AP, which we're offering online. We are working with partners to provide students with the hardware or connectivity that they need to be able to take the test. And if you go to the AP site on the collegeboard.org/AP, you'll find information for students about and for schools about coronavirus and online testing. And on there is a form. So if you know of a student personally that needs those kinds of assistance, then you could fill it out, or you could send a student to that site and the student can fill it out for themselves, or a high school counselor could fill it out for a student and let us know who that student is and what types of accommodations they need. So we're looking at connectivity and at resources for hardware that we're working with partners to make available to students so that they can test.
Thank you. Would any of our other panelists like to have a comment are being addressed? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Well, this one will go to, is for Pearson. Are there any plans to offer online tests to the TOEFL as an at-home edition?
Meredith, are you able to take that?
Yep, sorry. We are looking at online options. Right now we're using the Verson English placement test along, with concordance and some other options. So that's our online solution for right now. Obviously, I think we all have it in the works to move forward. We know that you know, global mobility is most likely going to be affected again. So I think as testing providers, all of us, the common theme that we all talked about today is that we're all looking to move things online and be secure about it. So I think you could say that keep tuned. We're getting there. I think we're all getting there. So yes.
Thank you. We have a series of questions that are, there's one actually for Cambridge. Well, it says, will that all certificates and levels is the question? IG, CSE, AS, and A levels?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, this applies to all of our qualifications. So it applies equally to IGCSE, O level, international, AS, and A levels, and pre-U's.
Thank you very much. A question or just a comment. Somebody asked by accommodations is connectivity issues. No, the specifically accommodations was students who need somebody to read the test out loud for them. So accommodations for disability services is what the question was intended to ask. We have a series of questions that are actually all for the College Board. And so let's go ahead and run through these. Will the students have the option to complete CLEP exams in an online format?
That is a question that I don't know the answer to, so I will get that information and append it to the slide deck.
Thank you. Are you offering exams for international students as well? Domestic students, but are you doing it for international?
The AP exams will be offered for international students as well as students in the U.S.
Thank you. Question, it says, I think here that I believe the answer was for accommodations, that's actually about connectivity. Can you more specifically accommodations about, that'll answer a little bit more specifically about how you can get accommodations for if they need the tests read to them and those other types of accommodations?
Oh, those types of accommodations. I don't have the details on those yet. Those have not yet been announced. Those should be coming out quickly. And I apologize for not having that information, but quite honestly, as you guys are doing as well, we're working on this as quickly as we can. And but we don't have that information yet, or not at least not to make available publicly. I don't know it.
Thank you. I'll do one more question for the College Board, and then we have a couple of others that have popped in here, again, to be mindful of time. Specifically, how did you get confirmation from the 20 state systems of higher education that scores would be treated as usual?
So there are 31 states that have enacted a uniform advanced placement credit policy. And so we've been in touch with all of them, and 20 of the states, and if I said 21, I overspoke. We've been in touch with 20 states and systems that have shared with us that their commitment is to maintain their current policy for this spring, or for this spring's test, the test that we'll be giving this spring. Some of those, California is one, Connecticut is another, have already made public announcements. And others are working through their internal processes to be ready to publicize. And so, but that's how we have done it. It's out of those 31 states that have an a uniform AP policy. 20 have confirmed to us that they are planning to do that and are working. Some of them are working through their own internal policies to make sure that they're ready to make the announcements.
Again, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions that are actually the same, but one's for Pearson and one's for Cambridge, and same question. So let's have Cambridge go first, and then we'll wrap it up with Pearson, and I'll hand it back over to Melanie. So the question is, what date, for both of you, what date will the certificates be available? Again, let's have Cambridge answer first.
As of right now, I believe they're still planning to roll everything out at the regularly scheduled date. I will double check that and post that on an FAQ if that changes, but that's my understanding at this time.
Thank you. Pearson?
Hi, Benjamin. Thanks for the question. Similarly, I'll have to double check. I know that that is a live piece of the discussion currently in terms of when we'll be issuing provisional and final results through the certificates. So just like Cambridge, let me double check that and come back to you, because I know that we haven't published that response just yet.
Thank you again, panelists. We have a few more questions there. We will get those answered, but I'd like to hand it back over to Melanie.
Thanks so much, Wendy, and thank you so much to all of the panelists, especially for giving us the extra time as we ran a little over. But this is really great information. As all of you know, just as happening on your campuses, these testing organizations are working as quickly as they possibly can during this, what we're calling COVID time, when something that might have previously taken a month or two to work out, we're having to do in days. So we appreciate all of the incredible effort that's gone into supporting our students and to supporting our institutions, and that effort will clearly continue over the coming months. And the same for ACRO. Next slide, Michael. I just want to make you aware of a new consulting service that has launched that might help very specific questions that your institutions have. ACRO has slashed prices and is offering a deeply discounted express consulting opportunities where your institution can engage a professional for a very specific need to work remotely on a very specific problem. These problems range from enrollment to records and registration to technical issues to developing transcript processes all over the map. If it's in ACRO world, consulting can help you with that. Contact consulting.org for more information. Next slide. Lastly, I would like to have you save the date and share with your colleagues. Next week, we have 2 coffee breaks. We have one on COVID-19 and commencement that will be on Wednesday, April 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the second will be an ACRO coffee break with Stellic, keeping students on track for graduation in crisis situations. So it's graduation and commencement week next week at ACRO in the coffee breaks. Registration is available at acro.org/COVID guidance, and you'll find all of our coffee breaks on that page. Again, I want to thank you very much for joining us and for being patient as we went over a little bit of time. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you all next week.